Rugby with Huw Griffin.
Welcome to the Huw Griffin on Rugby podcast. We had it skip a week last week, and we will tell you why just now, a little bit late in this podcast. So I was looking forward to this one. I missed you last week, man.
Yeah, I missed it as well. It's part of my routine on Wednesdays. I didn't know what to do on a Wednesday evening. I was just sat there staring at the wall.
Yeah, I had to, make sure I don't succumb to the lure of a beer. Not used to drink a beer on Wednesday night, so there you go. Anyway, let's start with the usual. You've got your shirt on. Every week I want to see if you still have a shirt to wear, because you said you were running low on stock there, and you put out an impassioned plea for people to please, provide some clothing. I don't know if it's worked, but what are you wearing this week?
I am starting to run low, so I have been buying more, and I got sent one as well, which I'm looking forward.
Oh, no.
I've already posted it on Blue Sky, so if you check Blue Sky, you'll just find out.
When did you post it?
Huh?
When did you post it?
Like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, you can't do that to me. I mean, as I know it's going to be Harry.
No, it's not Harry, I promise. It's not a Stormers shirt. I know that's what you're worried about. It's not a Stormers shirt.
But it could be any other shirt in the world, so long as it's not always probable to be a Stormers shirt.
Look, if Stormers go to Adidas, I am just a man, They'll have my money off me.
No, there's a word for people like you, Graham.
Okay, so this week I'm mostly wearing a Fiji top. This is a Fiji training top. You can see it's a Tellus Fiji top because it says Fiji on it. What color is this top, MW?
Pink.
That is the color. That is not the color it says on the website. I would say that it is orange. It looks pink on camera. Forgot where my camera was then.
Yeah, that's speaking of you from 8,000 kilometers away. That's okay. So.
It looks pink on camera, but it looks orange in real life, and the website says that it's red.
Oh, okay. I'm blaming you for that.
I don't agree with the website, but this is a Fiji training top from last year or 2 years ago. I don't know, man. It's with Fiji tops, I never know what I want because they're just white, which is a bit close to an England top, which I don't want. And if you can get like retro kind of Fiji top, like a retro jersey, like your retro Bulls jersey, but for Fiji. But I had never seen a Fijian wearing anything like that. So I just I don't know what I want from a Fiji top. So this is all I've managed to muster so far. It's very cool to wear. It's very light. And it gives me a chance to tell you all about the Pacific Nations Cup, which is starting this weekend.
You had to stop it. I said I was yawning when you told me you want to talk about that. Okay, now go ahead and tell about it. Just get it.
So the Pacific Nations Cup is a bit like the Rugby Championship, a bit like the Six Nations, and it has in it Fiji, Japan, Tonga, Samoa, USA, and Canada. What do all those nations have in common? They have a coastline on the Pacific Ocean. It is a tenuous link, but the link is there. So far it's an old competition, but it's had many iterations with many different types of team in it. The current iteration will be going into its second year? One of that.
Don't look at me. I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah.
And Fiji won it very, very easily last year. Second year because the last one was the World Cup warm-ups, and they won it very easily that year as well. So why you need to know about it is, firstly, we all love all these nations, like the Pacific Islands.
I was kidding about it.
And then secondly, it's very important for World Cup qualification. So everybody in it gets an automatic qualification spot apart from the bottom team. So it's very, very important not to finish bottom. We expect that the bottom team will be Canada. However, I'm a bit worried about Tonga because they seem to be really struggling to get players. And I have this horrible feeling that the USA are going to screw it up once again and that they'll finish bottom. So that's what might happen. But it's early morning rugby for us because it's all played kind of that way. And fun teams. And I'm looking forward in particular to watching Fiji, who are one of my very favorite teams in the world.
Well, you talked about Japan there, and obviously today the news broke that Springboks are going to be playing Japan at Wembley Stadium. Now, I know the name Wembley Stadium, but when I talk about stadiums with reverence, I talk about Loftus Versfeld or DHL or Ellis Park. What's the story about Wembley? What makes that so special?
So Wembley is the biggest stadium in the UK. It is a 90,000, I think the biggest ever rugby in test match, certainly in the UK. Attendance was at the 2015 World Cup, which was 90,000-ish people there, I think. And it's in London, and it's the national football stadium. So when England's men's football team plays, that's
Soccer
where they
team.
play.
As we call it soccer. Yeah.
It's where they play. It's actually new Wembley, the famous Wembley Stadium that Queen played a rock concert at and that Live Aid was at and things, got knocked down and a new one built in its place. It's not a very popular stadium. People who go there say that they don't like it very much. It's too spacious. Like you have to pick up the phone to talk to the person next to you kind of thing. And it's a lot of concrete. So, and it's obviously not a rugby stadium, but I think people will get over that because it's not England playing there anyway. I assume it's being played at Wembley because Twickenham's being used by England on the same day/weekend. And yeah, it's bold of the Springboks to go there. You know, even the mighty Springboks, I think, might struggle to sell 90,000 tickets in London. I'm sure they'll sell plenty. And, you know, I'm sure Japan will have a few people turn up. But yeah, expect it to be half full, maybe. Because you guys are playing Argentina later in Twickenham later this year, aren't you?
Yeah. The last game of the championship. Yes, you're right. The
I
away
might
game.
go to that. Do you know if their tickets are still available for that? I might go.
Yeah, they might be. They probably are. Yeah, I'm sure they are, actually.
You could get me press accreditation.
No, I could try. I can't promise you, but I could try. I got Harry press accreditation. Then Harry goes wandering about on Alice's Park field.
We shall make a plan, Ember.
Okay, run. I'll remember that. Remind me tomorrow. Let me get straight on that. Talk about Japan and South Africa. There's questions about why that game isn't being played in Japan. If they want to grow the game, why, you know, can you imagine the kind of crowd people Japan will draw if the Springboks went to play in Japan? But the problem is that the next weekend we're playing France, in France, you know, one of the top 3 games of the world of the year. I mean, for the Springboks. That's probably the reason why they're playing it in the UK.
Yeah, and Japan are over here anyway because Japan are touring Europe for their November tests.
Makes even more sense, yeah. Not that I'm following Japan that closely. That's weird. All I think I remember about Japan is Brighton in 2015. Yeah, actually there was talk of that, but that game actually being played at Brighton again. And then this week, I think once rugbyjp.com let us know that game was going to be a football game or a soccer game, whatever you want to call it. So now suddenly the Wembley thing came up. Interesting. I'd like to see what happens there. Talking of the Springboks, talk about last Saturday's dog shit show, like Rusty famously called it. And he's now invented the dog shit index. So all games going forward will be compared to that game as the worst possible game that Springboks have ever played, and then measure how bad the game is compared to that one on the dog shit index. Sorry, people, that's what Rusty called it, not me. I'm just quoting, like I said the other day. I'm just curious. I know you're not a Springbok supporter or All Blacks or Aussies or whatever, but your reaction to the Springboks losing to the Wallabies, and there was a lot of talk about the Lions. You and I also talk about the Lions, how strong they are, really, and the likes. And then suddenly the Aussies come to Ellis Park and beat the Springboks at the Holy Cathedral, the Holy Grail of Springbok rugby.
Big shock, wasn't it? I wasn't able to watch the game live. I was on a train. But I was following the score updates and they went 22-0 up and I thought, okay, this is probably maybe a little bit easier, a bit easier than I was expecting. And then I checked the score again and a few minutes later, I thought, oh my goodness, what is going on here? And then when they got back to 22-19, I thought, the Box will get another try. They'll put it to bed. They'll concentrate and then they'll score and then that'll be the game. And then I checked the final score and I was in disbelief. Gosh, we all look silly now, don't we? All of us were saying things a week ago and none of those things happened. So yeah, and I'm not. What I said on this very show was I don't have the data to tell me that Australia were going to win, and I didn't. So I don't feel silly for that. I don't feel, a shock is a shock for a reason. I think, and kind of to that point, a lot of people are kind of going, "Oh, it's because of this. It's because of this player. It's because of that." I don't think you can explain it. I think it's unexplainable. I think losing a 22 points to 0 lead at home to a team that is your inferior to that level, 38 unanswered points at home. Right? That never happens to anybody. So you can't explain it because you can't say it was because of this because you've never seen it happen before to anybody else. So, yeah, big shock. And yeah, that don't know what else to say. It's very difficult to put it down to a single reason. I think best I can offer you is help if you could catch a line out. I think that would have made you less likely to lose. And I think the one thing that stood out to me from the team selection, which I can't remember, it was out when we last recorded, was Willemse and Moody on the bench in 22 and 23. I thought, that's odd. Is Willemse going to be the replacement 10? And it worked out that both Grant and Manny played the full 80. which was also odd. So, yeah, I think that was one, maybe a mistake, but it still doesn't explain what happened.
Yeah. We never talked about the team because we didn't talk to it last week. You had other commitments.
Oh, of course.
More pressing commitments than the Huw Griffin on Rugby podcast on Megafoon Rugby. But yeah, that's a story for another day. Now, we talked about the dog shit index that Harry referred to. That's something that Rassie came up with. People don't slaughter us or crucify us. That we're just quoting. But you came up with the Afrikaans translation. I was very surprised to hear that. Just give me that pronunciation again.
Hundkak.
It's not hund, it's hond.
Hundkak. Oh, okay.
There we go.
And it's very similar to German. Very, very similar.
Of course it is. It's a Germanic language. Yeah. But you can't use that language in mother's place. She will freaking smack you. I'm telling you, I'm from experience. Never use that word in your mother's place. I'm telling you. But this week's team, I mean, it's Harry was joking the other day. Said there are more locks in this team than there are in the jail. So, what do you think the thinking about this week's team is?
It's a serious team, isn't it? It's the serious team, isn't it? Ruin Nokia is back. I am a big Ruin Nokia truther. I'm going to use the word, and I think that he is one of. I think that South Africa's best starting 15 includes Ruin Nokia. I think he's a very vitally important player, and I think he's playing extremely well. For all of the talk of, there's no first choice 15, which a lot of us bought into. It's kind of like, well, this looks like what the first choice 15 might be. Obviously, Scarlet's legend Marnus van der Merwe onto the bench. Is that the passing of the torch from Bongi to him? Is the big question. Ours should be cheering him on extra loudly. Willie le Roux is back. When in doubt, in case of emergency, break glass and deploy Willie le Roux. And Kanan Moody, of course, last week lost his record of having never lost in a Springbok jersey. Although you can still use he's never lost when starting a Springbok game, unless he loses this week, of course.
Well, I completely forgot that last week, Wednesday, when we were supposed to record, I was actually attending the Springbok Centurion match, dinner.
You were passing the salt to Ewan Etzebeth.
Yeah, my wife was chatting up all the Springboks. This is no shame whatsoever. I said all the pictures. That was quite interesting. We're actually probably going to be speaking to all 8 Centurions if things work out, by the way. That'll be good, don't you think?
That will be very, very good. Very, very interesting. Do they all have nice table manners? Are they all polite young men?
Yeah, some of them, were attacking the buffet with more gusto than others. No, I'm joking. They're all very well behaved. No food was flying or anything like that. And they were actually quite well spoken. I was surprised about how well spoken some of them were, because you only see them in the field, didn't really talk. And some of them are freaking eloquent. I was a bit taken aback. I'm not saying they're stupid or anything. I just never heard them talk before.
Well, now you mention it, I'm thinking of hundreds test cap players. I can't think of any thick ones. Like Alwyn Jones, for example, Wales' most capped player is a lawyer, qualified lawyer. Dan Bigger obviously knows his stuff. Lee Huffman is very softly spoken, but I believe that he's
sharp as well.
Must be quite sharp. Gethin Jenkins, I'm talking about Welsh ones because they're the ones that I know. Also known for being a smart guy. So maybe it's a thing. If you make it to 100 test caps,
it's a prerequisite almost.
You have to have something about you.
By the way, I spoke to CJ van der Linde this week. 75 caps for the Springboks, including a World Cup in 2007.
Was he stupid?
No, not at all. He actually did some analysis for us this week on the Springbok test, because he was the defense coach for the Cannon Eagles, where Jesse Creed plays for 3 years. And he just came back to South Africa now, end of June. Now back full-time in South Africa. And I tell you what, he told me a couple of things that's quite interesting. The way he sees a game, he was initially scrum coach and then he moved into defense coach. And Andre Pretorius even told me, then we knew there was defense coach. So Andre is obviously also defense coach for his team. We know the Dolphins. So CJ is one of our new collaborators for that. Interesting guy to speak to, honestly. It was quite nice. We can talk about transfer rumours a little bit. That's something that you and I enjoy in Formula 1 and in rugby. And you didn't know that Ruben van Heerden might end up at Montpellier, and you didn't know that Marnus van der Merwe is on the Stormers radar, for example. Is there anything else I can tell you that you don't know about?
I think all of them. The whole idea of this bit was that I'd tell you the rumours, but I didn't know any and you knew loads. I've had a week off social media, blame that. But I can tell you, first thing I can tell you is that the Stormers can go somewhere else if they want a new hooker. And
This is what you said to me. That's not the words you used on WhatsApp.
yeah, but it's a family show, remember? It's bad enough with the whole hundkak thing. But I can tell you about Montpellier if you would like.
Before you tell me about Montpellier, just briefly, today the news broke that Boeta Chamberlain is leaving the Bulls to go to Newcastle, the new Red Bulls. Do you know about that?
I did see that. I got confused between him and that other former Sharks. Who's the other guy? The other former Sharks fly half who went to the Pro Day 2. Not Chamberlain, the other.
Yeah. Kerwin Bosch.
Yeah, that one. I got confused between him and that.
Yeah, they look sort of similar. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's funny enough, when Newcastle posted the picture of Boeta Chamberlain, they posted him in a Sharks jersey. I guess because no one's seen him in a Bulls jersey. No one's seen him in a Bulls jersey.
Yeah, I'm not surprised he left. Honestly, Jake just dropped him. When we thought he was going to now be the number one fly-off when the person got injured. Then Willie started playing 10 and Boeta was never played again. Now I was playing. Funny.
I thought it was it wasn't a signing that I was excited for as a Bulls fan. I wasn't that impressed with him at the Sharks. But yeah, look, all I can say is that the money that it was required for Red Bull to spend, as we know as Formula One fans, is required for Red Bull to spend on rugby to become the most expensive rugby team in the world, is nothing compared to what they spend on Formula One and football and other things, rallying, whatever it is. Red Bull Leipzig, the soccer team from Europe somewhere, Leipzig, they sold a player to Manchester United for 80 million.
What, pounds?
Yes. Oh. This summer. If they spent 80 million pounds on one season of rugby at Newcastle, they would be spending 40% more money than Toulouse are spending on everything. So that is how relatively little money it would take for Red Bull to turn Newcastle into the team in rugby union. And I expect it to happen quite quickly. I can't emphasize how much of a game-changing thing this Red Bull takeover of Newcastle is. And Boeta Chamberlain, enjoy it while you can, because they're going to be signing a much more expensive fly half than you very soon.
Oh, well, we went from the Blue Bulls to the Red Bulls. I had to get that in there. I mean, that's a lekker thing. Interestingly, just to put things into perspective, the whole shebang last year about SA Rugby selling an equity stake to those American investors that I can't remember the name of now, Achilles. They were going to get $75 million for 20% of SA Rugby. Now they sell one player for £80 million. That's just absolutely ridiculous. All right, tell me about Montpellier. I mean, why is everybody either going to Montpellier or running away from Montpellier?
So I run a French rugby Twitter account, and I, on that account, refuse to refer to Montpellier by name. I just call them MHR, which is Montpellier Herald Rugby. They are a very, very problematic rugby club. They are owned by a guy called Mohamed Altrad, who that surname may ring a bell, because Altrad are the first front of shirt sponsors for both the All Blacks and the French national rugby union team. Now, things got a bit dicey when it was revealed that that sponsorship deal was secured to sponsor the French national team via bribery. I'm pretty sure I don't need to say allegedly there. Him and Bernard Laporte, aka Bernard the Door, were in cahoots and managed to secure this favourable deal for Altrad. Altrad's an interesting man. He made his money in scaffolding, of all things, and is also a award-winning novelist. But most of his money comes from scaffolding. And Montpellier is his little pet project that he likes to pour his money into. Montpellier have previously won the top 14 once. Their women's team was very good for a very long time. They were the dominant women's rugby team in France. And they won a Challenge Cup and things. They've been there.
Under Jake White, by the way.
Yeah.
Under Jake White, yeah.
But their problematicness, it doesn't just end with Mohamed Altrad, who, by the way, once Bernard Laporte was banned from World Rugby. Bernard Laporte at the time was the vice president of French rugby. When he got done for corruption, he had to leave. And guess who gave him a job immediately? Mohamed Altrad gave him a job as the head coach of Montpellier straight away. So, and it's not only that. If you look at their players, they've got some problematic players in there. Stuart Hogg, do I need to tell you what Stuart Hogg has been up to? He plays for them, and they signed him after all the stuff came out. Mohamed Hawass, a convicted domestic assault, domestic abuse guy. Another guy that they had is, I think another prop that they had has also been done for domestic abuse. They've got lots of people who play for them who have been done for violent crimes. There was a lock who played for them who was arrested for racially motivated assault, but he managed to convince the jury that it wasn't racially motivated. He just kicks the crap out of the guy for no reason. So, yeah, not a nice bunch of people. And they have a very high turnover in players. A lot of players leave and a lot of players join. So last season, I think they had released well into double figures of players mid-season. Not like at the end of the season for a clean out. Mid-season, a load of players had left. So, yeah.
Well, we know Janus Aventay left and them and Nicholas Jansen van Rensburg left them both to come to the Bulls. But they both were there for a long time. I mean, several years.
Your man, the guy, your 10, who hasn't got any knees.
Oh, Hussen,
he played for them. Your other man, your new 10, Andre Pollard, also played for them. He wasn't much loved there. Andre Pollard. He doesn't have the most glittering club career considering what he's done in the Springbok jersey. Montpellier, he was not well thought of. Another one who plays for Montpellier is Mados Tambwe.
Oh, yeah, also ex-Bulls, yeah. Yes.
So he plays for them. I'm sure all of these guys are very nice. It's just the French ones that are wrong and the Scottish one. So, yeah, not a very nice team. But what I can tell you about them as a rugby team is that they won 25% of opposition put into the scrums. So at 25% of scrums that they faced last season, they drove the opposition off their own ball, which is more than even the Bulls.
Who's in their front row?
These people who are convicted of domestic assault.
Say no more. That's we. Okay, let's talk about the proper rugby. It's the Rugby World Cup for women starting pretty soon in England. So what I wanted to do is seeing that's in your backyard there and everything. Tell us how it's going to work, what the structure is, who the favourites are, and obviously then tell us what you think the South African women's chances are.
So there are 16 teams at the Women's World Cup. The first ever Women's World Cup was run in 1991, and it was won by the USA, which is interesting. There are 4 pools of 4 teams, and you guys, South Africa, are in Pool C. You are up against France, Italy, and Brazil, which is an interesting mix of teams. Mm-hmm. So France are probably, I would describe them as the worst good team. So France are ranked 4th in the world. They have phenomenal athletes who play for them. If you look at the main difference that I'm starting to notice between the top women's teams and the not top ones is what rugby coaches call length or height to most people. They've got very, very tall backs. And they're very athletic, very powerful, very strong runners. Like their winger, Joanna Grise, is a great example. So they should top this pool. However, they are, in my opinion, underperforming. I think that France is not really taking women's rugby as seriously as it could be. I think there's massive potential for improvement and growth in the women's game in France. There is no excuse for them not being professional with the amount of money that's knocking around the club game there. And I think that their national team should be better than it is. But I still think it is the best team in this pool. You're also up against Italy. Italy, a year ago, were terrible. They lost to Wales. That's how bad they are.
Ooh, yes.
Now, though, all of a sudden, they're really good. It was literally like a light switch. Like they turned up this year and like, oh, we're good now, by the way. And they're really quite good. And I would not be surprised if they gave France a bit of a scare. So clear your mind of what you might be pre-expecting from watching the men's game. Italy women probably will beat the Boks. I think it will be an interesting game. I don't think it's impossible for the Springboks to beat them, but they are a good team. They love an offload as well. And you guys are 3rd ranked in the pool. As we've spoken about on this podcast previously, the Lady Boks are coming on leaps and bounds. They obviously beat the Black Ferns 15 a few weeks ago. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing them play. I think that there are things about the Springboks, notably their set piece, that will give any team in this competition, including England, a few headaches. So that's one to watch out for. And then finally, completing the pool is Brazil. Brazil are the lowest ranked team in this World Cup. They're good fun. They've never been to a World Cup before, and they should be your banker of a win. It would be a massive, massive, massive shock if you did not beat Brazil. So that would be your first ever win at a Rugby World Cup. Long time coming. I think the game against Italy will be interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised to see you scare France, but ultimately they would have too much for you.
Okay, Huw, we're having our own little Africa-related internet challenges once again. I mean, it's just the way things are over here at the moment. So getting back to the Rugby World Cup, the Women's Rugby World Cup, what are the, what can we look forward to? If you now tell somebody like me who's not really into women's rugby or doesn't really know much about it, what would you say, what are the top 3 games that I maybe could watch out for this weekend?
Top 3 games to tune in for this weekend in the Women's Rugby World Cup for people who don't normally watch women's rugby. So I'm going to start off with on Saturday at 3:15 UK time, so 4:45 South African time. Scotland versus Wales. This is a Pool B clash. This will decide effectively who qualifies for the knockout rounds, because the other teams in this pool are Canada, who neither Scotland or Wales are going to come close to beating, and Fiji, who ideally Scotland and Wales should be beating in women's rugby. So whoever wins this Scotland-Wales game will probably be the runner-up in the pool and therefore get to the next round. So that's at 3:15 on Saturday, Pool B. Then also on Saturday at 8:15 in the evening, France versus Italy. So I alluded to this earlier. This is an interesting and exciting game. France, as I said, probably the worst good team, and Italy massively on the up. It was a very tense game in the Six Nations between these two, and I'm expecting it to be a tense game as well. Don't be surprised if Italy managed to pull off a shock here. I really think they've got it in them. And then finally, game number 3, Ireland versus Japan. So this is an interesting one. Japan, another women's rugby team on the up. They were on a 3-match winning streak until they played Italy a couple of weeks ago and lost to them. Ireland have been a good news story for women's rugby over the last few seasons, but they're having a bit of a struggle at the moment, maybe a bit of dip in form, and they're really struggling badly with injuries. So it should be an Ireland win. They should have too much, but definitely tune in for it because there's going to be fireworks. I promise you that. That one is at 12 o'clock midday UK time in Pool C on Sunday.
All right, now you've talked about everybody except South Africans. When do the Springbok women play?
I acknowledge that these are all Northern Hemisphere teams, but my defense for that is this. There are 16 teams in the World Cup. 6 of them are Southern Hemisphere, and 2 of those are Samoa and Brazil, who are the lowest ranked teams who are unlikely to win a game. So they're probably not going to feature in my games of the week. So I will feature South Africa and New Zealand and Australia in future rounds, but it happens to be that this weekend they're not in the top 3 most exciting fixtures. You guys are playing Brazil, and it should ideally be a routine enough victory for you in that game.
When do we play?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't look that one up.
Yes, I mean, you just do more homework. We're talking about South African rugby here. I mean, geez.
I know. Well, this is for new. Okay, hang on. Right. You are playing Brazil on Sunday at 3:15 UK time. So 3:45 your time.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to that. I mean, I'm going to watch that. I mean, they can play against a team of Lampards. So I would full watch it because South Africa. I mean,
could well be a historic occasion, your first ever Rugby Cup World Cup.
I think Swayze is going to make a world of difference. You know, I've both spoken to him. That guy has got his head screwed on properly. He knows rugby. He said it's one of the most lunchful people we've ever spoken to in terms of rugby. So I'm looking forward to see how far they can get. He wants to get to the knockouts. He wants to win one game at least, or get to the knockouts for the first time ever. So let's see.
It's going to be tough, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be nice. Okay, thanks for that. Looking forward to that. Right, now I'm going to ask you a very personal question. One of the reasons why we couldn't pod last week, apart from the fact that I went to the Centurion dinner, I'm just rubbing it in there. And that's the fact that Wales is looking at maybe reducing their teams from 4 to 2. Now, I'm not going to go into details. It's quite painful. Somebody told me the Bulls are going to, might have to be sacrificed, or the Stormers for that matter, or the Sharks, whoever, and that's going to be emotional. I'm going to ask you about that. That's not even been decided yet, but the inevitable question arises. If Wales goes down to 2 teams, there are 2 spots opening up in the URC, or maybe 4 if those 2 teams remaining might end up maybe in the British Premier League. Is that a possibility? And what's going to happen to fill a vacuum in the URC? Because that's what we replay. That's the best league in the world, apparently. So what's going to happen?
It is possible that it's looking likely that the Wales will reduce to 2 teams, and then it is very possible that those 2 teams leave the URC. And a lot of people in Wales are in favour of that. I'm not, but there we are. What will happen in terms of what the question that everybody else is asking is what will happen to the URC. Fortunately, I can give a fairly certain answer to that, which is what the URC have already said is that they will go out to tender and they will invite other clubs to join. Who will those clubs be? Well, I'll tell you. So firstly, we know that we've got a club sitting right there who could easily join any moment now. The Cheetahs, currently top of the Currie Cup, as we know. And they were in the preceder to the URC, the Pro 14, along with the Southern Kings. So that institutional knowledge you'd hope is still there. Ruin Pinar, he knows his way around the Northern Hemisphere. And so they would be a very easy one. Probably the least effort one is to get the Cheetahs in. Now, what does that do to the South African Shield? You guys should have 5 teams in. Who knows? The whole Shield thing would probably have to be scrapped if the Welsh lost. So there's one. Who else? Another team that we know is already in talks to join the URC is Black Lion from Georgia. So they've made no secrets of the fact that Georgia at test level wants to be added to the Six Nations, and Black Lion, who is basically Georgia in a different jersey, want to be added to the URC. This is a fact. So they could request to be joined, and then them, along with the Cheetahs, are both already playing in the Challenge Cup. So 2 ready-made teams who want to be in it, as far as we're aware, able to be in it, have the means to be in it, job done. They could open the tender on the Monday and close it on the Tuesday. 2 teams in the bank, no problem. Who else? The other big story that's been going around that comes up quite regularly is USA-based teams. Now, the big, and I'll come to you on this a bit later, is the big thing that people talk about with USA teams is the logistics. However, did you know that New York is closer to Dublin than Tbilisi in Georgia is?
Oh, okay.
Tbilisi in Georgia is a long way away. Georgia is GMT -5. New York is GMT +5 or +4. Sorry. So they're not actually that different distances away. It's just one feels a bit further away because one's in Europe and there's a great big Atlantic Ocean between us and the other one. So it's not impossible logistically for a USA team to join. It's about the same as a Georgian team joining. Now, who would that be? Depends. The best team in the USA for a while has been New England Free Jacks. So if they were to be promoted to the URC, look, we know that MLR, the American League, is going through a tough moment. Lots of teams going out of business. So could they just promote the best American team, which seems to also have the most stable foundations as a rugby kind of place? Could they then just join the URC? It would be a good candidate. You have to look around America where the hotspots are. So the hotspots for rugby are kind of in the South and Texas. There were a lot of clubs in Texas. So there's a fair amount of rugby interest there. California is another one. Of course, introducing a team from California, now that is a very significant logistical challenge to get them playing in the URC. California is very, very far away indeed. So that feels a bit unlikely. If it was to be, say, New England or New York and Miami, then logistically I would say that is doable. But it's a challenge. So, and it would rub everybody up very much the wrong way having USA teams, because there's a very good chance they would be highly uncompetitive. And then you've got the air miles racking up and everyone's going, why is the URC doing this cash grab in this team? It would feel very weird to have Leinster and an American team in the same league. I hope that's not disrespectful to say. It would just be very new for everybody. Who else? In terms of nations who are already in it, adding teams, we've already spoken about South Africa adding the Cheetahs. Italy is not impossible to add another team. You might be surprised to hear. There is the will and the way in Italy for them to have a third team. Now, you might find that surprising given that Treviso aren't or Benetton as they're called at the moment, aren't super competitive, and Zebra are very uncompetitive. But apparently there is the money and there is the player base in the north and the rugby interest in the north of Italy to support a third team. That's what I'm told. I would say that is the most unlikely option, but it's a possibility. So they're kind of the main ones, the main contenders. The easy options are Black Lion and the Cheetahs. I think the options that the URC would like most is American teams. And if all 4 Welsh regions leave at some point, then don't be surprised to see both.
What about some of the weaker French teams from the Pro de Deux, whatever you call it?
The French would be absolutely no interest in joining it whatsoever. They're very happy in their league, thank you. They don't want it. That's one of the things that really annoys me is when people say, the Italians should just play in the French league, because you might as well just say, I have no idea how French rugby works.
Like I just did.
Yeah. So no. The French teams want to play in France in front of French people and nobody else, thank you.
What happened to the other Scottish teams for that, as a matter of interest? Why are there only 2?
Long story. There was a third team when the URC first started back in the day when it was the Celtic League. There was 3 Scottish teams and there was an extra team called Borders. They folded and are now gone. So when they first started, there was 3. When the Welsh teams first started, there was 5. There was a team called the Celtic Warriors based out of Bridgend. They only lasted 1 season and then they folded. So, yeah. And then there's like Scottish domestic rugby beneath that. It was never particularly competitive as far as I'm aware.
Okay. That's quite interesting. So what happens if Wales go down to 2 clubs? Can they still be competitive in the Six Nations?
Well, the whole justification from the WRU for doing it is that it will make Wales more competitive in the Six Nations. The WRU have their story as to why they're doing it. It's about whether you believe it or not. I don't believe it. My reasons for that are this. The WRU are serial liars. They tell us lies constantly and they go back on their words. They've done more 180s than a roundabout making person. They said at the beginning of this year that they were committed to 4 regions and that there was the money there to fund 4 regions. They have now gone back on that. When Cardiff went into administration, they said it was their intent to move Cardiff back into private ownership. They have now gone back on that. And the WU have gone back on many, many things. They actually have a signed contract with the Dragons guaranteeing the Dragons' existence until 2029. And they appear to be going back on that. So, will this make Wales more competitive in the Six Nations? Maybe short term, because the cohesion would go up because all the players are playing together more, and possibly the teams would be stronger because only the best players would play for them. But then ultimately, the talent pool that you are picking from would shrink. Instead of giving players 4 opportunities to break through and be noticed, you would now only have 2. So there is less opportunity for talent to get game time and get noticed. And I think the ultimate result is that more and more Welsh players would go over and play in England and they would be lost to the Welsh system. So no, I don't think that Wales reducing to 2 regions is a good idea in any way. And there's been leaks going on all over the place today, and they've leaked some of the things from the WRU kind of PowerPoint about justifying this. And there are glaring factual errors and just stupid things written in that pack that anyone could point to and say, hang on, that's ridiculous. So, yeah, it's bad times, Enver. It's very, very bad times.
Tell me, the Welsh Rugby Union, who are they? Who's in charge there? Is it rugby people? Is it business people? Is it, I'm just asking because South Africa is pretty much run by rugby people, but there are good business people lately. It wasn't always like that. But lately, though, we've got they make a couple of mistakes, like the debacle of the pricing for the Springboks this year, the tickets and the likes. But who's running the WRU? Can I ask that, or is it a bit of a sensitive subject?
No, you can ask it. The WRU went through some reforms a couple of years ago to put in professional boards. The problem is that the people that they employed, to use your phraseology, are not rugby people, categorically not. Abby Tierney, who is the CEO, is about to step down for health reasons. She's not a rugby person. She doesn't have experience working in rugby, is my definition of that term. Dave Reddin, who is the new director of rugby for this Welsh Rugby Union, is also not a rugby person. He was an assistant coach to Clive Woodward in 2003. And after that, he did not work in rugby for 20 years. And then was high up in the FA in soccer, and then did nothing for a bit, and is now the director of rugby in Wales. And the rumours, if you believe rumours, are that he doesn't know tons about rugby. And then you've got Richard Collier-Keywood, who is the head of finance. He is an accountant. There's nothing more to really say about it.
It's about to say, you're saying it like it's a swear word almost.
I have nothing against accountants, but my point is that he's not a rugby man. So no, rugby people are not in charge of Welsh rugby.
Okay, may I ask the question just for our South African audience here? We've got the Ospreys, the Dragons, the Scarlets, and Cardiff. Those are the 4 teams currently. We know them quite well. We know the Dragons and Ospreys are probably the weaker of the 4. But that's not necessarily what's going to happen in terms of the teams remaining or the teams leaving. Just more or less, what are the rumours? Who's going to go and who's going to stay?
The rumours at the moment is that all 4 will go and 2 new teams will be created.
Oh.
A West Wales and an East Wales team.
So who's West and who's East in those 4? How do they?
Ospreys and Scarlets are West. Cardiff and Dragons are East.
So basically, Ospreys and Dragons are going to sort of bite the dust because they're the weaker teams.
That's one possibility. I don't know. Yeah, one thing that I can tell you is that there will be professional rugby played in Cardiff moving forward. So that would suggest that the Dragons are going. Unfortunately, I don't know how the mechanism goes on about them getting rid of the Dragons. The Dragons are a privately owned company. They've got all their own assets. They own their own stadium. They've got a contract with the WRU until 2029. I've got no idea what it looks like to get rid of the Dragons. I don't know how they do that. And then the Ospreys and the Scarlets are basically competing for survival in all. One who survives will be renamed the West Wales team, whatever that name ends up being.
I saw something floating around, West Wales Warriors or something like that.
That's a name that's been bandied around for ages. It's just what's a convenient name. It's a name that works. In women's rugby, they have 2 teams that were brought in for the Celtic Challenge, which is the Women's League. They had one team that had a blue and yellow kit that played out of Cardiff, and they had one team that had a red and black kit that played out of Llanelli. They were called Brython Thunder and Gwalior Lightning. I should expect that what we end up with will look something like that, except men.
Rugby with Huw Griffin.